Hey everyone, Ryan again with The Smart House. So a few weeks ago, after I posted my Wyze version 3 review video, I had a company reach out to me and ask me if I'd be interested in taking a look at their camera. I jumped at the chance, and they shipped me their brand new camera. So this is from a company called EasyViz. This is the C8C pan tilt outdoor rated Wi-Fi camera. So obviously this seems like a good fit. They went ahead and sent me one from Amazon, and I spent the last week playing with the camera and setting it up. So now what sets this camera apart is the fact that it's an outdoor rated pan tilt camera, and I haven't seen many of these in this price point targeting the consumer and business market. Before we take a look at the features of this sub $100 outdoor camera, let's head downstairs and we'll go ahead and crack the box open and see what's included. Let's take a look. So let's go ahead and crack this open. Now, first thing we'll do is we'll start with the actual camera itself. One of the cool things that I saw on this particular camera is the fact that it actually has Ethernet, which I was not expecting a camera in this price point in this marketplace to actually have Ethernet on it. So that's a nice addition. If you're going to be running power over Ethernet, then you can actually connect it over Ethernet as well. So first thing we're going to do is do everybody's favorite, which is peel off the plastic. So here's the camera. You'll notice it's got dual Wi-Fi antennas on it. It has pan axis and the tilt axis here. Like I said before, it's got a pigtail on here, which has the 12-volt in for power, and then the Ethernet if you want to connect it over Ethernet as opposed to the Wi-Fi. Now, one of the neat things about the way this mounts is it has an integrated mount here that has both ceiling mount and wall mount on here. So I'm gonna actually probably be mounting this to the ceiling under an eave in the front of my house. Actually, it comes with a handy little drill template, which you can just stick on where you want to drill, and then it tells you the hole spacing. And then of course, the other items that come along with it. We've got some quick start guide. We have the all-important 12-volt adapter. We have what they call the waterproofing kit, which this allows you to waterproof the Ethernet connection, and then the included hardware to attach it to your ceiling or wall. Good, if you wanted to wall power this, it just has a standard 12-volt adapter. I'm gonna actually be using a power over Ethernet adapter to drive this camera because of the position it's gonna be in. And if you notice here on the top, there's the QR code, and this is required to set up the camera. So this is sort of the authorization the app uses to find this particular camera and set it up. So that's all is what's included in the box. So like I said before, there are built into the camera itself, there are two standard mounting options. There's the ceiling and the wall mounting using the included hardware. In addition, they do offer a pole mount using these cutouts here to put a zip tie through. You could take a couple of zip ties and pass them through these two holes here and be able to attach this to a pole or a mast. Now, I would probably recommend not using just standard off-the-shelf zip ties, but using either hose clamps or a metal zip tie for more increased durability, because you wouldn't want this thing sliding down the pole or falling off. So for my demo, I'm actually gonna probably mount it to a light stand, just so I've got some place to put the camera itself. But it's nice to have a couple of options other than just mounting it straight to a wall. If you're going to want to use Ethernet, I'll quickly show you how to use the waterproofing kit that comes with the camera itself. If you're gonna be running your own cable to the area where you're gonna connect this camera, it shouldn't be a problem because you're typically just going to terminate it with an end like this. But if you do happen to have one of these cable sliders or the ones that protect the clips, you'll need to get rid of those because they'll make them too thick to fit in this connector housing here. So you've got, I think what they call it, the nut, the gasket, and the end cap. So they should go on in that order. That way, you can fit this all together once you connect this to the camera itself. So next what we're gonna do is go ahead and connect the Ethernet cable to the camera itself, and then we're gonna twist on the end cap here so it makes a nice snug fit. And then we'll draw up the gasket and push it inside of this flared end here. So that way we have the gaskets fully inside of the flared end of this cap here. So it's snug like that. And then we're gonna take what they call the nut and place that over here. Once we tighten this down all the way, then we're gonna have a completely waterproof connection that keeps all kinds of bad stuff from getting to the Ethernet connection. Because that Cat5 cable in here, or whatever category of cable you're using, because that RJ45 connector in there does have metal, if it gets water in there, it will corrode and it will cause the connection to break. And you need all those pins, or the majority of the pins, if you're gonna be using something like power over Ethernet. All right, now that I've shown you the waterproof section, let's go ahead and get the camera connected to power and set up. And then finally, we'll go back and look at the features once we have an active camera. All right, so on this pigtail connection. I've already connected the DC plug to a power outlet over here behind the camera. And so like I said, you could do this with power over Ethernet using an adapter. The camera itself doesn't natively support PoE, but you can use an adapter that will change PoE into one of these 12 volt connectors and actually have one up where that old camera is mounted right now. But we'll go ahead and get this connected in to the barrel jack so the camera will power up. You'll notice on the front of the camera here, you've got a status LED that will change colors depending on what state it's in, whether it's ready to go. Then on the back of the camera, there's actually a reset button. And in the manual, which I've got linked here below, will show you all the different color combinations for the light and also how to run the different reset commands, whether you're doing a soft or a hard reset on the camera. So now the camera's booting up. It's going to check probably all the pan tilt motors. Yeah, so it's going to rotate the pan axis here. And then once it starts flashing blue here, that indicates that we're ready to go set up for Wi-Fi. So the first thing you're going to have to do once you get the camera applied to power is go ahead and download the EasyViz app. I've got a single link here below, which if you go to this from your mobile device or scan the QR code, it will take you to either the App Store for Apple or the Google Play Store for Google for Android phones. Or if you're on desktop, it'll take you to the downloads directory from EasyViz where you can get things like the TV connection or the PC application itself. But for today, I'm going to be setting this up on my Android phone. All right, so I am going to go ahead and open up the EasyViz app. Now, obviously, if you don't already have an account, you need to go ahead and set up an account. They do have Federate through Google and Facebook, so it makes it a little bit easier to set up, but you'll still need to go ahead and get a username and password. Once you get your account set up, then you'll be presented to this No Devices Added, so we'll go ahead and click the plus button. You want to add a camera. And we have to grant it permissions to take a picture because it's going to utilize the QR code on top here to communicate with the camera itself. So we can say while using the app. All right. So now I'm going to take the phone and have it scan this QR code on top. And now I'm going to tick the box that says device is powered on, hit next, and it's started up already. And since I've already done this, it now says wait till the indicator is flashing blue, which it is. So I'll say indicator flashes blue, hit next. You need to allow location permission so it can scan for nearby Wi-Fi access points. And then I'm going to go ahead and have my phone connect back to my Wi-Fi network. So now you can go ahead and select which network you want to present to the camera itself. If you have multiple networks like I do, select whichever one that you want to use for your camera itself. I have a dedicated SSID just for cameras. That's on my main network, but it doesn't utilize my Google Fiber connection. It utilizes my Unified connection. So I'm going to go ahead and log into that. And it's going to ask if you want to connect to the temporary Wi-Fi network, which of course you have to allow the camera to connect. All right. And now it's configuring the network. So we'll wait for this we'll go ahead and fast forward through this. And once it's done, we'll go through some of the features of the camera itself, some of the application features and the features of the camera itself. Now, if you do run into troubles getting the camera to connect to your Wi-Fi, you also have the capability to do what they call a manual connection, where you tell your phone to connect to its Wi-Fi access point and it'll provide you with the password. And then from there, you can go through the manual process of setting up the camera. All right, so now that the camera has been connected to my Wi-Fi network, we can go through the device setup itself. So it gives you the option to go ahead and see what the camera is seeing, which, excuse the mess back there. You can turn on and off some options, like it'll give you the option to go ahead and download the QR code into your gallery, which is super handy. In case you have to ever set it up again, you don't have to climb back up on top of your wherever this camera is mounted. This gives you the option to save into your gallery, so I suggest putting it something like Evernote or Notion for future reference. You can turn on or off the audio on the camera itself, whether or not you want to hear. And then you can select what time zone it is, and it looks like it pulled that time zone directly out of my phone itself. Now, they do have their own premium cloud service if you'd like to look into that, and there's an option for activating a free trial there. I'm going to go ahead and save mine because I don't need it right at the moment. We'll go ahead and click next. And this is going to be over the garage. Some information about, if you need to disable on Android, disable some settings if you run into problems. And then, of course, every time you turn on a camera, it always has new firmware updates, which you can go through and do that at a later time. So I just want to make sure everything looks good here for the camera. But we'll go ahead and get into the camera itself. And once it loads up the image, we'll be able to control the camera. Uh-oh, I can hear myself. So now it's loaded in here, we can use the pan tilt, and as you can see, it's moving the camera itself. So from the application itself, you can control pan tilt settings, you can take a picture, you can record a video if you want to. You can have it do a 360 picture where it'll do a stitch image of all the surroundings of the camera whenever you run that. You can go to your video history. Obviously, I don't currently have a SD card, which I'll go over that here in a second, but if you do have an SD card, you can access the onboard memory on itself. You can change the definition, how high the quality you want. I'm assuming that would be 1080p, 720p for high def, and standard be 480p. So pretty standard for the application. You can see your device version down there if you want to be able to update the device, or I could click here and change the name of the camera itself. So we'll call this one. All right, so now that's all set up. The last thing we're gonna do is go through all the features of the camera itself, and I'll kind of show you what sets this camera apart from some of the other cameras on the market. All right, for this last section, I saved the best for last. Let's go through the different features of the C8C camera. So the first major one is that it does have the ability to have selectable recording levels. The highest possible recording level will be 1080p, which is pretty nice, pretty standard for cameras these days. The other item, it'll support up to a 256 gigabyte SD card, which is just a ton of recording space for a camera like this. And there's this nice screwed entry on the back of the camera itself, to keep that waterproof. And right next to that is the reset button, which you hold down if you want to factory reset the camera or set it up on a new Wi-Fi access point. We've already gone over the mounting options and the QR codes on here. The camera itself has 352 degrees of pan axis, so it can effectively turn almost completely around to the back. There's just a small section which is kind of pointless because if this is mounted on a wall or a pole, it would just basically be looking straight at the pole. So it can look almost completely around the camera with the exception of directly behind it. And then it's got 95 degrees of tilt on here. So that means that it can actually go past 90 degrees on the up axis to be able to see ups just ever so slightly if you happen to be able to need that for some reason. Or it'll be able to look straight down underneath the camera itself. It's got 3 modes of night vision on it. It comes with a color night mode, color night vision mode, where it uses kind of a combination between the infrared and the camera sensor to be able to see in the dark in color. It also has a high contrast black and white mode, which is more of a standard where it uses the infrared to be able to just see in black and white for more of a kind of high contrast. Or you can have it set in auto mode where it'll dynamically change between the two of those depending on what's best for the situation. So when using the application, it has some onboard AI machine detection, so it'll actually be able to designate and notify you inside the application if you happen to have, if it detects a person. You're starting to see this more and more on cameras. I mentioned in my Wyze review that I would like to see that onboard the camera itself. That is part of the standard feature on this camera itself. You can actually get the person detection. It's not part of the premium package for the cloud services, so you can get those notifications on your phone. It has onboard microphones to be able to listen in live view or also pick up audio when you're doing a recording. And as you saw in the application, you have the capability of disabling that if that's something you don't necessarily want. But it's nice to see that it's got the dual microphones on it for that capability. It also has an onboard spotlight, a visible light spotlight on it that can be triggered in the application itself, or it can be triggered on motion if you want to. That way, if somebody's approaching the camera itself, it'll let them know that they're being watched because the camera actually will light up with an actual spotlight. The camera uses 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It's not common to find 5 gigahertz on most any cameras these days, but 2.4 obviously gives you a longer range on your connection. It's just not as high of a throughput as a 5 gigahertz would be. Or, like I said, you do have the option for Ethernet, which is really nice for being able to hardwire the camera so you don't have any reliability problems whatsoever. And to my surprise, you can actually integrate these cameras into Home Assistant. There is a integrated component for EasyViz in Home Assistant that you can just log into it, select which server, EU or US, and then you'll be able to bring in control of the cameras and also being able to bring in an RTSP stream so you can view your cameras inside of Home Assistant. So that's a pretty awesome feature for this level of camera, and it's something I'll be setting up in a future video. All right, so now we're back outside. To kind of sum up everything, I do think this is a great camera if it fits into what your specific needs are. Not everybody's gonna need a pan tilt outdoor rated camera. I do have a specific use for it. That's why I'm super excited about getting this thing installed next week. But not everybody has a need necessarily for an outdoor pan tilt camera. If if you have a lot of fixed locations or places that are easy to cover, then you're already set. However, if you have places like the corners of your house that you want to be able to get a 360 degree, almost 360 degree view, then this camera would be a great choice for that. It seems like it's got a great build quality, it's got a lot of feature sets on it, and best part is it will integrate with other systems and not just only their application. Even though I got this camera for free, I definitely think if I had the need again, I'd probably buy it for this particular installation location. So if you're in the need for a sub $100 hand tilt camera that can be put outside, I think this is the right camera for you. So thanks again to EasyViz for sending me the camera to review. They were actually the first company to ever reach out to offer me something to review, so I really appreciate it, and thank you again for this opportunity. If you're interested in checking out the camera, there's a link to Amazon below in the description. So next week, weather permitting, I'm gonna be installing this camera over my garage to replace that old Foscam camera. That camera didn't actually fail, it's just the cable got repeatedly hit with the weed whacker, and so this time I'm gonna actually do a better job of burying the cable as it passes between my downspout and where it exits my house. So in that video, I'll be showing you how to properly install an outdoor camera, not just physically in its location, but also how to deal with outdoor rated Cat5 cable and setting it up using a power over Ethernet adapter. Thanks again for watching. If you'd like to see a playlist containing some more videos on the Wyze cameras and other cameras, click down here. If you'd like to let the algorithm select for you, click this box above. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel by clicking here. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your week.